20 years ago, this was an exciting week for Americans.
Apollo 11 was on its way to the moon, and we were all anticipating man's first step onto the moon's surface. Collins Radio in Cedar Rapids played a major part in that achievement, and tonight Eyewitness News reporter Dave Franzman looks back at Apollo 11 and the Collins connection.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Maybe you watched the flickering pictures from space that night in 1969 when Neil Armstrong set foot on the moon. Maybe you just read about it later. But you probably remember what he said. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Well, it really gave you kind of a tingly feeling all over, or at least me it did. And I was really proud. It really made you feel a little bit better than a lot of things and a lot of people, I suppose.
Herm Reninga has good reason to remember Apollo. He, along with hundreds of others at the then Collins radio plant, made the voices from the moon possible. When Armstrong spoke those famous words from space, he used a radio made in Cedar Rapids. Workers here also designed and built all the communications gear that sent data and TV pictures back to Earth.
Obviously, a lot's changed in the last 25 years. So, for instance, at the height of the Apollo program, about 500 people worked in this area doing the assembly work on all the components for the space program. Now it's mostly offices, but a lot of people are still around from those days, and they have fond memories.
Out of 500 Apollo workers at Collins, maybe 150 to 175 still work here. They remember a special atmosphere, as if they knew they weren't working on just another piece of equipment, but making history.
It just makes the hair stand up in the back of your neck. My kids still talk about it. Still talk about it. It was a real thrill. And to know you had something to do with it, not much, but some.
Obviously, things change. Nowadays, automated machines assemble many components. In the mid-1960s, Collins workers assembling Apollo gear did it by hand. And they did it very carefully. If something failed out here, you couldn't bring it back to the factory for repairs. Tomorrow night at 10, we'll continue our look at Apollo 11 and the Collins connection. We'll talk with Cedar Rapids workers who lived with the stress and strain of putting a man on the moon. Dave Franzman, TV9 Eyewitness News, Nightcast.
Dave says all the Collins workers who were involved on working the Apollo will celebrate the 20th anniversary of the moon landing Thursday afternoon. Man first walked on the moon July 20th, 1969, and workers at Collins Radio in Cedar Rapids played a part. Tonight, Nightcast reporter Dave Franzman continues his series, Apollo 11, the Collins Connection.
Frank Knapp feels pretty comfortable doing his job. He ought to. He started out inspecting components at Collins Radio back in 1963. But while Frank tries to catch every mistake, there was a time when lives literally depended on it. It was the time of Apollo.
We got third step. Roger, we confirm third step.
Every bit of data or TV signals being back to Earth use Collins communications equipment.
It's one small step for man.
You heard Neil Armstrong's famous first words over a radio transmitter made in Cedar Rapids. Actually, by the time man walked on the moon, much of the work was over here. The Apollo heydays at Collins came in the mid-1960s with up to 500 people working on space program equipment. Frank remembers it as an exciting time. But it was nerve-wracking, too, because space offers no second chances to get it right.
We were sure it was going to work. But once they took off, you still had that sensation, hey, was it as good as we thought it was? But as it turned out, it was.
Now here's an example of some of the time and care that went into the Apollo program here at Collins Radio. For instance, these days, if you're soldering a part onto a circuit board, you're allowed an average of about 20 seconds to complete the process. If you were doing the same work during Apollo, you could take 5 minutes.
Other Apollo veterans remember the long hours. Bersha Brown, who's now retired, worked nights and weekends to stay on schedule. But she remembers something else with special pride. No Collins gear produced for Apollo ever failed.
You definitely felt you could not make a mistake. You could not let a bad connection go. or anything like that. If it could be improved, or if you had to completely tear it apart to fix it, it had to be fixed.
Collins radio workers in Cedar Rapids watched that one small step for man with more than casual interest today. A lot of communications equipment made in Cedar Rapids landed with Apollo on the moon. Eyewitness News reporter Dave Franzman looks back now at Apollo 11 and the Collins connection. In his final segment of his series, Dave says many workers remember that day 20 years ago with pride.
It may look like any reunion, but this was something special. After all, it's not every day you help America put a man on the moon.
Perigee plus 00085.
Those voices you heard on Apollo 11 came over communications equipment made in Cedar Rapids. Other Collins components carried the data and TV transmissions. Exactly 20 years later, workers at Collins gathered here to recall the heady days of Apollo. The faces in this old splashdown party photo may have changed since 1969, but the memories never faded. Bob Bumstead, Ray Fuller, and Fred Preziosi say there was never anything like it here, before or since.
Apollo is one of the most spectacular things we've done around here.
The Apollo program was unique itself. We all worked together hard to make sure it worked right.
Even today, Collins workers are heavily involved in the space program. Any voice that you've ever heard from a manned vehicle has come over Collins communications equipment. A number of units like this one are aboard the space shuttle now, and they're hoping to sell more. Still, some of the old-timers say it's nothing like the days of Apollo. It was like everyone in the company was in the same rowboat, pulling the oars together. It's a feeling you may never duplicate.
Jim Westcott was the assistant Apollo project director at Collins. He remembers those grainy pictures from space and looking up at the moon in awe.
We could look at the television on the deck, and just to see that all happen, and the one small step for mankind, one great leap for mankind, I guess it was just spectacular.
Obviously, you can't live in the past. Collins workers have gone on to other jobs, other programs. But for one brief moment, the whole world watched Apollo. And these workers helped make it happen. Dave Franzman, TV9 Eyewitness News, Nightcast.